Let me show you a number: $7,380. That is what FIFA wanted for a Category 2 seat at Sunday's final. Not one seat like it. Nearly 1,200 of them, all sitting at that same price, all for the same 90 minutes of football. And that is before you reach the seats that were listed higher, the ones that climbed past 11,000. One match, one night, and a wall of numbers that tells you, without saying a single word, exactly who was welcome in the building. Stay with me, because the wall is bigger than it looks. So how does one seat at a football match end up costing more than some people earn in a month? How does the final of the sport the whole planet calls its own turn into a night most of the planet cannot afford to stand near in person? The answer is not a mistake. The answer is not some rogue employee who typed the wrong figure into the wrong box. The answer is a system running exactly the way it was built to run. And this week, tucked inside a roundup of the tournament's ugliest moments, that system finally showed its full face. Start with what $7,380 actually buys, because the label matters more than it looks. This is not the front row, it is not the halfway line, and it is certainly not a glass box with a waiter, a private lift, and a view of the tunnel. Category 2 is not even the top of the ladder. There are pricier seats above it, and there are cheaper ones below. And still, one rung down from the very best in the house, the second category carried a $7,380 tag. That is not the ceiling of what this final costs. That is the middle of the climb. And here's the part almost nobody clocked. It was not one strange listing hiding in a corner of the website, a fluke you could laugh off and scroll past. It was nearly 1,200 seats. Almost 1,200 of them lined up shoulder to shoulder at that exact figure for that one game, so read it as what it plainly is. Not a glitch, not a surge that flickered for an hour and then vanished, but a price sheet, a decision printed 1,200 times over. To understand why that price sheet looks the way it does, you have to understand how FIFA is selling this whole tournament. The organizers are not using the old-fashioned fixed price, the kind printed on a stub months ahead and then left alone. They are using demand-based pricing. The number on a seat is not set once and forgotten. It breathes. It moves with the crowd. When more people want a match, the software pushes the price up. When interest cools, it can drift back down. The very same seat can cost one thing on a quiet spring Tuesday, and something far heavier the week the whole world decides it needs to be there. Now aim that machine at the single most wanted night of the entire summer, the final. The match every supporter on the planet has had circled since the draw was made. Demand for that room is not merely high, it is close to bottomless. So the machine does the one thing it was designed to do. It climbs, and it keeps climbing, patiently, until it finds the exact edge of what people are willing to pay. That edge, for the middle tier, turned out to sit at $7,380. It helps to remember how the ticket ladder is built in the first place. FIFA sells in categories, and the categories are a ladder. The top of the ladder is the priciest air in the stadium. Below it, tier by tier, the seats are meant to step down towards something an ordinary person can actually reach. That is the whole promise of a tiered system. There is supposed to be a rung for the banker, and a rung for the bus driver. When the second rung from the top is asking $7,000 and change, you do not have a ladder anymore. You have a wall with a few doors cut into it for the people who were always going to get in. And the second tier was not even the ceiling. Before this week's figure landed, other seats had already surfaced carrying numbers that make 7,000 look almost gentle, listings past $11,000. $11,000 for a chair in a stadium, to watch a football match that, not so many years ago, an ordinary working supporter could save toward and actually reach. That is the kind of number that makes accountants wince. Now, one honest note, because it matters and because a rival would pounce on it in a heartbeat, those $11,000 figures are listings. That is the resale climb, the open market piling on top of the official price. The $7,380 is the other thing, and in some ways the more damning thing. That one is the face value. That one is the price FIFA itself asked before a single reseller ever got involved. People thought that earlier $11,000 headline was the whole scandal. It was not. It was only the loud part. The $7,000 wall, 1,200 seats deep, was the quiet part. And the quiet part is the worst one, because 11,000 always sounded like a number meant for somebody else, some faceless collector, some corporate guest with an expense account. 7,000 for the middle tier is the number aimed straight at the fan who honestly believe the middle tier still belonged to them. And it cuts deeper still when you set it beside everything football keeps telling us about itself. The people's game, the sport of the street corner in the schoolyard and the muddy park with jumpers for goalposts. The one thing on this earth that is supposed to belong to everyone, rich or broke, famous or invisible. Football did not grow on the backs of billionaires. It grew on packed terraces full of people who did not have much and spent it anyway, week after week, because the game was theirs. $7,000 for the middle seats at the final has a way of arguing with all of that, loudly. So that is the price. Now look hard at the timing, because the timing is what turned a pricing story into an outrage story. This did not crawl out of some sleepy news cycle 3 months back, when the final was a distant rumor and nobody anywhere was reaching for a card. It surfaced this week, final week. The exact stretch of days when ordinary fans are hunched over their screens, refreshing, hoping, doing the math one more time to see if there is any possible version of the answer that comes out as yes. That timing is the part that stings, because a price is only a price on a slow afternoon in spring. You can look at it, wince, and get on with your life. But a price the week people are actually standing at the door, hands out, ready to give up everything they saved, that is not just a price anymore. That is a message. And the message reads, more or less, this night was never really built for you. Which, if you happen to be an ordinary supporter, is not the warmest welcome the sport has ever handed out. So, no, not great. There is a reason this one keeps climbing the timelines while bigger football stories fade away by morning. It is not the raw size of any single figure. Fans have seen expensive tickets before, and they will again. It is the feeling that the door was priced on purpose, and priced right now, right in front of them, while they stood there and watched it happen. While that official price sheet was busy doing its damage on the front page, something else was quietly building right alongside it. The resale market. Every seat sold at face value instantly became a seat that somebody, somewhere, could turn around and flip. And on the open market, that is exactly what tends to happen. Reporting pointed to seats listed past 11,000, and whether those came from resellers, from premium packages, or from both, the direction is the same. When hunger for one single night runs miles ahead of the number of chairs in the room, the asking prices climb, and everyone standing in the chain knows exactly how badly the next person wants to get in. So a fan chasing that final now stares at two walls, not one. The first wall is FIFA's own price, already brutal on its own. The second wall is the resale crowd perched on top of it, betting that somebody richer or somebody more desperate will pay whatever it takes once the clock starts running down towards Sunday. Between those two walls, the ordinary supporter has almost nowhere left to stand. Now, in fairness, FIFA has an answer for all of this, and it deserves a proper hearing, not a cheap dismissal. The organizers would tell you that demand-based pricing is simply how modern events work now. Prices are not fixed because demand is not fixed. When a match is the hottest ticket on the planet, the number reflects that the same way it does for a heavyweight title fight or a farewell show from the biggest act in the world. Nobody, they would say, is being forced to pay a cent. The seats are worth precisely what people are willing to give for them, and the market, not FIFA, sets that figure. And they would remind you, plainly, that the final will sell out no matter what anybody says. Every seat, every tier, right down to the last one. And here is the uncomfortable truth for anyone hunting a simple villain. On paper, that argument holds. It really does. Nobody invented the demand for the biggest match in 4 long years. The hunger is real, the scarcity is real, and premium nights carry premium prices in almost every corner of entertainment on Earth. If that were the whole of it, this would be a shrug, not a scandal. If you follow this World Cup and you want the story underneath the story, the version the organizers would rather you did not sit with too long, this is the channel for it. Subscribe and stick around. Every match, every ruling, every number like this one, broken down for what it actually means instead of what a press release wants you to feel. It takes a second, and it keeps this coming. But that is the version you have been handed. Here is the version sitting quietly underneath it. Demand-based pricing does not simply follow the crowd around like a polite shopkeeper. It reads the crowd. It watches, day by day and match by match, how much the market will bear before buyers start to walk away, and it prices right up against that line. That is not some unlucky side effect. That is the entire point of the design. And when you aim a system like that at the one match every fan on Earth has dreamed about since they were a child kicking a ball against a wall, it does not go searching for a fair price. It goes searching for a ceiling. And then it leans its whole weight against it. That is the pattern worth sitting with. Not one greedy figure standing alone, but a system built on purpose to draw the absolute maximum out of the exact moment people care about the most. Across the whole tournament, those dials have been turning quietly, match after match after match. The final is simply the place where the dials finally run out of room to climb any higher. The $7,000 seat is not an accident that slipped through the system. It is the system working perfectly, doing precisely the job it was hired to do. And just when the noise around the pricing looked like it might finally settle, the roundup landed and dropped every one of these figures into the same place, laid out side by side, plainly, where nobody could pretend not to see them. $7,000 for the middle tier, $11,000 and up on the resale climb, 1,200 seats deep at that one price. All of it, together, in the exact same week the door was supposed to be swinging open. So picture the person this actually falls on. Not the corporate box with the branded napkins and the catered spread. Not the sponsor guest wandering in with a lanyard and a free drink they never paid for. Picture the supporter who followed this team through qualifiers that nobody else bothered to watch, on grainy streams at strange hours in an empty living room. The one who put a little money aside, a bit at a time, month after quiet month, and who told their kid, softly, that maybe, just maybe, this is the summer they finally get to be in the room for the biggest night the sport has to give. That fan opens the page this week, and they meet the wall. $7,380 for the middle tier seat they almost could have reached. And they sit there for a long moment, staring at it, and then they quietly close the laptop. Now picture a different one, the traveler. The fan who does not even live on the same continent as MetLife, who looked at flights and hotels and the price of simply being in that country for a week and decided years ago that this one tournament would be the trip of their whole life. They budgeted for everything, the flights and the hotel and the meals. The one thing they could not budget for was a governing body deciding, in real time, that their dream should cost as much as the market could possibly bear. So they get all the way to the final step, the seat itself, and the number moves the goalposts one last time. Now take those two and multiply them by a whole stadium. Then multiply that by a whole planet of people doing the exact same quiet arithmetic in the exact same week and arriving at the exact same heavy no. That is the real number buried inside this story. Not 11,000, not 7,000. The uncountable number of small private dreams that got quietly priced out of the room in the one week the room mattered most. And if this were only about one final, in one summer, in one stadium in New Jersey, you could file it under bad luck and move along. One rough week for the little guy. These things happen. But this is not only about one final. Up until now, the sport could still tell itself a comforting little story. The door is open, it would say, to anyone willing to save hard enough and want it badly enough. This week, that story got a great deal harder to say with a straight face. Because this is not a one-time slip, it is a direction. Every tournament, the demand-based machinery gets a little smarter, a little hungrier, a little better at reading exactly how much love a fan is carrying in their chest and turning that love into a figure on a screen. Every final, the best night the whole sport has to offer, drifts a little further out of reach for the very people who packed the terraces back when nobody was filming, nobody was streaming, and nobody had yet worked out how to price the air by the hour. The $7,000 seat is not the scandal all on its own. It is the preview of where the whole thing is heading. So here is the question worth carrying long after Sunday's final whistle has faded into the night. When the game that so proudly calls itself the people's game keeps pricing the people out of its single biggest night, at what exact point does that name quietly stop being true? FIFA will tell you the market decided, and maybe in the narrowest possible sense, it did. But somebody built that market. Somebody chose the dials and set them to squeeze rather than to welcome. And somebody chose to let the full price show its face in the precise week the people were reaching hardest for the door. The seats will sell. They always do. That was never once in doubt. What lingers after the confetti drops on Sunday and the cameras pack away is simpler and harder. When the biggest night finally arrives, who is left standing outside, and whether the sport still remembers that it used to care.